Excuse me.
True and false.
It's test 11.
Yeah, no.
It's test 11, that's the one. All right, so what we have here is our technician telling us we should begin HVAC problem diagnosis with a thorough inspection. Technician B says you can determine from the inspection what type of system you're dealing with.
Both.
Who is correct about that? When you say what type of system you're dealing with, what is he talking about there?
If you've got the
Thermal
expansion
expansion valve or an accumulator.
Okay, R134, R12,
Yeah.
this kind of thing. Although I will tell you this, you know, in the early 90s it could be either one. But what I've managed to find out is that I've seen some, and I hadn't seen any of these in a while, but I saw two vehicles that had 100% R134 in them, and they had R12 fittings. I mean, the refrigerant identifier flagged it as 100% 134, but the fittings were totally R12, you know, so in some cases that's not true. Technician A says sometimes nothing's wrong with the system when there's a complaint of insufficient cooling. Technician B says you should begin diagnosing this complaint by checking the AC system pressures.
B.
That's technician A. Sometimes, whenever they're complaining about insufficient cooling, it's just because it's really hot weather, and they want it to be colder than it can get. Because there's only so much an air conditioner can do on a really hot day. It's going to drop the temperature of the air a pretty good bit, but the higher your ambient temperature is, the less it works. Now, like a heat pump is like that. If you've got a really super hot day outside, your heat pump on your house is not going to work that good either, because it can't pump heat out there where there's already heat, you know, where there's already so much heat.
So it was one both.
That's basically going to be number 2 is going to be A. One's going to be C, 2 is going to be A. So basically, both those guys were right on the first one, and A is the only one right. You don't begin the diagnosing the complaint by checking AC system pressures. You know, what did I tell you guys? What we build on our little flow chart up here? Turn it on, see if it works. Get out there, see if the compressor's kicking on. See if it's short cycling. You know, you go in that route. Technician A says while the compressor clutch is off, it's okay if the pulley and clutch plate touch. No. Technician B says too much air gap can cause clutch slippage during engagement.
Yep.
That's absolutely true. I mean, I've got technician B is the only one that's right there, and I will tell you that setting the air gap on some compressors is easier than others. On that GMC out there and the ones like that, there's a special tool that you have to use. Screws into the hub and pushes it, you know, and it's like $100 special tool. But on the Ranger, and on some of these Chryslers and stuff, you just basically take they got shims in there right around the bolt that holds it in, where you got to change out different thicknesses. But you got to get those from your parts supplier. Technician A says oily residue on a hose can indicate a refrigerant leak. Technician B says this residue is normal for most connections. Who's right about that? A. Let's see. Technician A says a quick check of AC system operations to feel the temperature of the suction and discharge lines. How do you like that? How do you like that, guy? Is he a good guy?
Yeah.
Actually, a really good way to do it. Technician B says the suction line should be cold and the discharge line hot after a minute of system operation.
It's going to be a little bit more than just hot.
Yeah, it's going to be more than a minute, too. You know what I mean? After a minute. So number 5 is basically going to be A. That's not really long enough for it to be. And what did I tell you guys? If you're working on something, let's say that you've had to replace a hose on somebody's piece of equipment and you don't know what the refrigerant charge is, because maybe it lost the refrigerant charge because it busted a hose, and you go ahead and put a hose on it and you pull the air out of it, and you're going to keep adding refrigerant until what? If you don't know what the charge is, what are you going to do? Add the refrigerant until what happens?
Low side is like, what's it, 35?
I'm going to feel the suction line until it's cold all the way to the compressor is what I'm going to do. If the suction line is cold all the way to the compressor, you've got enough refrigerant in there. You can put too much and it won't cool good, so that's an important thing to consider too. And also you can have so much oil in there that it's going to keep it from working right. Melissa and I had to flush the oil, all that oil that was coating the inside of the evaporator on that F-150 that we were working on, because somebody put too much oil in it. You know, the oil and the dye charge, they just loaded the thing up with so much that the air conditioner wouldn't work like it was supposed to, short cycling and everything else. Anyway, we went ahead and flushed that out and got it working. Let me see. Section, you've already done that. Technician A says replacement of the fuse is the only repair necessary for a blown fuse. Sometimes that's true, believe it or not. Sometimes fuses just get tired because the fuse is actually rated for just a little more than what it takes to spike up. Like if you have a 15 amps worth of lights on, that's going to pull 15 amps, you're going to put a 20 or a 25 amp fuse because when you first turn them on, you're going to see a spike in the amperage and then it's going to level off. So you're going to have it where that spike won't blow the fuse every time you turn on your doggone lights. And fuses get tired. I'll tell you something else. These Chinese-made fuses that you see sometimes that they sell at the convenience stores and stuff can be junky and not blow at the right amperage, like too little or too much. And that's not always a good thing if you're protecting electronics with them. Let's see. Technician B says the blown fuse is caused by a system fault such as high resistance. This particular one, they're wanting neither one of those guys to be right. See, we found a blown fuse on Katie's boyfriend's truck out here for the turn signals. It takes two power leads to feed that turn signal flasher on that truck. The one coming from the battery was blown. However, in the book it says it's supposed to have a 25 amp fuse in there and it had a 20. Like it spiked up and blew the fuse? Maybe. Although the guy at the parts house, he didn't have a 25, he had a 20 or a 30, so we put a 30 in it. Okay, Technician A says the first step in diagnosing a problem is verify what the complaint is. Technician B says a TSB can tell you the cure for some problems. C, Technician A says a misadjusted blend door can cause poor AC operation. Technician B says you can check this by clamping off a heater hose.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's some vehicles where you can't clamp off a heater hose.
What do you mean, they don't have heater hoses?
No, the fluid's always cycling through the heater core.
I know. The point is, why would you clamp off the heater hose to diagnose a blend door problem? You're going to shut off the coolant that's going through the heater core so that the heat that's being produced there or that's being fed in there is not there. But what's the caveat? You want to clamp off the one going in, not the one coming out. Because if you clamp off the one coming out, you've subject to bust the heater core. So make darn sure you know which one you're clamping off.
That's not going to stop up something somewhere else in the system?
Because it's actually, that's the bypass for the thermostat too. Before the thermostat opens, it's going, the water pump is pushing the coolant through the heater core. And on a lot of them, the actual heater control valve, like on that Ranger, it actually, whenever it closes off the coolant going to the heater core, it lets it keep going. But you're not really going to hurt anything because is the water pump a positive displacement pump?
No.
It's not. It can whirl and just, cavitate or whatever. So that's not even a big deal. But when you pinch it off, if it gets cooled in, and your blend door's got issues, and if you got the way of pushing the buttons on the automatic temperature control, if it's got that, and it'll tell you that that heater blend door is not moving, you need to check that. Sometimes people will drop a pencil down in the dash or something, and it'll foul the blend door where it can't move. There's stuff like that going on. Okay, so let's flip on over here. Hurry up. Number 9, Technician A says foul-smelling air from the AC ducts is caused by bacteria growing on the evaporator fins. Technician B says this problem can be cured by installing a control that operates the blower after the vehicle is shut off. That is true, but nobody that I know except GM provides that particular kind of a kit. And on Cadillacs and stuff, they have that. What good will that do? That dries off the evaporator and keeps it from growing the bacteria to begin with. Now, on some of them that they start stinking like that, they have this lethal chemical that you treat them with. It prevents it from ever growing there again. And you better have a respirator on that will block that without, you don't need to be breathing it or you'll be dead in 2 days or something like that. This is nasty stuff. This one guy had a beard about like what you got. And we had this new, nothing wrong with the beard, don't get me wrong, I don't have anything wrong with the beard. But the people said that was running the shop, the service manager says, I need you to be able to treat these air conditioning systems because we're going to have to do a bunch of these. And you're the man. You're the guy that's going to have to treat them.
I just got 2 for $1 at Hardee's. I can't eat the second one. Quarter pounder, no cheese. Whoever wants.
Cool. There you go, man. But long and the short of it was, this guy didn't want to shave his beard off. He says because they had to be able to seal to your face really good, so they didn't want him breathing that poisonous chemical. And they said, we need for you to be the one to do this. And he said, well, I'm not shaving my beard off. And they said, well, there's the door.
Huh.
I mean, I've never seen that happen anywhere else. But in that particular set of circumstances, he put his foot down and said, I'm not shaving the beard off. And they said, well, we don't have to let you keep working here then. We'll hire somebody else that's willing to shave off their beard. So he shaved his beard off.
It's 9C.
Yeah, 9 is actually C, yeah. Okay, hey, I have to tell stories, okay? Technician A says a refrigerant line ground out problem makes a whining noise at moderate speeds. Technician B says knocking noises are a sure sign the compressor has failed. That's D, neither one of those. You can't categorically say anything's failed just because something's knocking. If a blower does not operate at any speed, what do you check first?
Fuse.
Use.
Outstanding performance. If it's got a fuse.
That's what was happening on the, that neon.
Yep. If the following is a frequent cause of air conditioning system noise and vibration, excuse me, which of the following is a frequent cause of air conditioning system noise and vibration?
Improper clutch air gap.
Yep.
Vibration?
I think it's D.
What about incorrectly routed lines and hoses? This technician is checking AC operation. With the compressor running, the suction line should be
Cold.
cold. There you go. All right. That's going to be a D. What's the expected temperature when touched at the point shown? What is the expected temperature when touched at the point shown?
Not enough information.
Actually, what is that point? What's that component you're looking at right there?
Is that the orifice too?
Huh?
Dryer.
Cold.
There's a whole nother way behind.
Is that the orifice too?
No, that's the receiver dryer. And the receiver dryer is on one that's got an expansion valve. And the receiver dryer is in the liquid line, and the liquid line should be, it hasn't made it to the orifice tube, or the expansion valve yet, I'm sorry. Hadn't made it there yet, so it's going to be hot. The missing AC service cap can allow a leak of up to how much refrigerant per year?
Maybe a pound.
1 pound a year. However, I will tell you this, if that thing's leaking on the high side, it'll build enough pressure to it'll blow that plastic cap off there. So, access to hidden areas behind the dash can often be improved by removing what? The glove compartment, that's right. Vibrating AC hoses that make ground out noise can be repaired by doing what?
Either A or B.
Either A or B. Clamping them together or separating them from the other surface. If they're moving around, they're eventually going to rub holes. I've seen a plastic line, like a plastic vacuum line, rub a hole in an aluminum AC line. You don't think plastic rub a hole in aluminum? It picks up pieces of dirt and it turns into a little grinding device, you know.
So is that C or
Let me see.
17?
No, that's number 7. It's going to be A or B. Hey, Sonia. Yeah. I haven't done it this month. If I did, I'm going to have to look in my book. I may have, because he did bring it, but I mean, it runs together, and I don't remember what the date was. Is he over? Is he over here? Okay, let me get through into this class session, and I'll call you back as soon as I can get out there. All right. Okay. Now let's see. High-pitched noise from the compressor during engagement could be caused by what?
Oily clutch surface.
What about excessive high side pressure?
Maybe.
Well, if it's oily, it's not going to be a high-pitched noise, is it? It's going to shh. Engine off HVAC inspection checks include everything except what?
AC pressures.
Yeah, you can't really do a lot with AC pressures when it's off. Technician A says a stinky evaporator can be cured by spraying a fungicide, that's what I was talking about a while ago, into the fresh air register in front of the windshield. Technician B says this problem is more common in areas of high humidity. Who's right about that?
Both.
Both of those guys are right. And that concludes that test. All right, I'm going to briefly turn this on. I got just a minute. I'm going to briefly turn on this thing right here.